Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. We're just waiting for a couple more people to come in. But in the meantime, thank you for joining us, and we're excited to talk to you.
Gabby, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you design this first slide here?
I did not. I don't have any graphic design skills, but I am very honored that you think that.
Well, I just realized that the picture in the bottom, kind of like the bottom right quadrant here, that's me.
Oh,
It's kind of like the side 1/3 profile of the right side of my face. That's from that graduate school marketing initiative I was telling you about.
I saw that, Daniel, when you were talking and you had turned your head and I was looking at it on my screen. I was like, I wonder if that's him from that marketing campaign that he said he did, but maybe not, maybe not.
That's me. It's funny when that hit Instagram, and again, it's like just like this much of my face. I got 1,000 text messages that day. Oh, I saw you on Instagram. You're Instagram famous now.
I love that. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I apologize for the background noise on my end. Things happen and they're mowing the lawn. So I apologize about that. My name is Gabby and I currently manage the Alumni Association at CNETS. Whether you're joining us live today or you're tuning in to the recording later, we're very happy that you're here. If we could go to the next slide. In case this is your first Zoom ever, we're happy to be along with the journey. You are muted, but feel free to unmute if you have any questions. You can do so with the three little dots in the right-hand corner of your screen. And then if you have any chat or questions, like I said, either unmute or put them in the chat. And then if we could go to the next slide. We also recommend for you to have your Zoom on speaker view just so you can focus on our panelists and not everyone else. But again, that is personal preference. And today to talk about community involvement, we have Daniel Guerrero and Monica Maldonado Williams. Daniel will share his previous experiences as a former mayor of San Marcos and the executive director of the San Marcos Education Foundation, among other leadership roles. And Monica is going to talk to us about how to be involved in the community at the corporate level. And she currently serves as the manager of social impact and community engagement at UFCU. So without further ado, take it away, Daniel.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation to be a part of this to begin with. I'm truly humbled and honored. It's interesting seeing the picture that you have projected on the screen at the moment where it says IMSL 2009. I'm an alum of St. Edward's University, graduated with my Master's of Science in Organizational Leadership and Ethics in 2009, which was just a life-changing experience for me. The relationships that I developed, starting with Dr. Thomas Seacrest and going through all of my cohort members and everybody I've met during that time and since, has just simply been a wonderful a value add to my experience as a leader, as a neighbor, and now as a professor. I teach at Concordia University. I teach in the School of Business there at Concordia, and I also teach at Texas State University. And I feel like a lot of the values and understandings and just perspective that I gained from my time at St. Edward's, I continue to bring into, whether it's the classroom or the boardroom or the many different volunteer roles that I play, has been instilled within me from the relationships and experiences that I was blessed with at St. Edward's. I want to share a couple of pictures with all of you. So if you wouldn't mind progressing to the next slide of community involvement. And there's the starting with this fresh blank screen here. Let's move to that first picture and see who's behind the screen here. That is me. That is little Daniel, and as it says right there, 1980. The cropping got cut off a little bit. That would have said SWT, Southwest Texas, 1980. That is me at 3 years old, not having any idea of what the world had in mind for me, what I would be doing in my future. But a short 2 years from when that picture was taken, I would go through the most defining moment of my life as both a person and as a leader, as a Christian, and that is my diagnosis with cancer in 1982 at the age of 5. I'm actually coming up on my 40-year cancer-free survivor anniversary, so I'm super excited about that. But the reason I even share this to begin with is this is where everything starts for me. The decisions, the practices, the experiences, the effort that I put into each and every day is defined by what took place in my life in 1982. Now, granted, I don't have a picture saved on my phone from 82, so 1980 was about as close as I can get. But that little guy had a lot coming forward, and even his family, his parents didn't know what was going to come next, but it really did start that early. Let's move to the next picture here. That is little Daniel again, and in Cub Scouts. That's Den 116. I was part of a community organization that instilled tremendous values, practices, understandings, surrounded me with good people, surrounded me with the responsibility to be involved, to be engaged. And I thought it was fun. It was tremendously growing from a leadership standpoint, but I think it wouldn't be for many, many years that I would truly understand the impact that the people, the experiences, the time, the support that others were investing in me, what that would develop into my future. So let's look at the next picture. What is that about? This next picture is, well, here we are. That's Daniel. That's not so little Daniel. This was about 12 years ago now, and that is me at my inauguration for my hometown of San Marcos, serving as mayor for 6 years. That was the idealistic me. Look how slim I was. My hair looks good. My skin looks great. Oh, little did I know all the struggles and challenges that would come and add 50 pounds, but I would not trade that experience for the world. I am the first Latino to have ever been elected to serve as mayor of San Marcos. That doesn't mean that there weren't previous Hispanic mayors. I was the first to have been elected. I was the first to be reelected, to be elected 3 times, to serve 6 years. Could probably have continued, but at that time I was also, I think, 32, and kind of felt like, there's probably more to life. I should probably be doing other things. And I developed tremendous relationships and had been through great success and some certain traumatic events and natural disasters as well. And when you're serving in public office as an elected official, it is not a paid role. You're doing it out of the goodness of your heart. You're doing it for service to others. You're doing it because you want to leave the place that I still live in my hometown, a better place than it was when you arrived, and to encourage others to love and value the same aspects of life. And so my service as mayor, and in fact, Dr. Seacrest, Thomas Seacrest, my mentor, swore me into office that night. I'm probably looking at him, smiling at him, just because I knew that the lessons, the relationships, the experiences, the values that I gained from my master's experience at St. Edward's helped me get to that part, helped me share and be a part of some tremendous experiences and investments and opportunities for my hometown. And a big part of that was because of the lessons and support that I had received, and the encouragement in building my own confidence that I received from St. Edward's University. So let's see the next picture. What do we have next? Well, that's me, that coming kind of towards the end of my time and serving as mayor, and those are about the only demographic of people that would talk to me about that time. That's a joke, but that really is an image of my passion. Having growing up in San Marcos, having gone through the school district and all the schools that were built in San Marcos, having been a product of Southwest Texas State University, education was a big part of what I wanted to leave and where I really wanted to have a significant impact. Certainly in an elected municipal leadership role, you're responsible for, public safety, infrastructure, job creation. But in my mind and in my heart, I understood that the actions that I was taking, the decisions that I was a part of, were truly going to impact those young lives. And that was a significant driving force to my desire to be involved. And also to make sure that they recognized and understood that I valued their presence, and that me being there wasn't just to take a picture. In fact, I didn't go there with a photographer. That was a picture that the director of the nursery took. But it was just being there with those kids and letting them know that I cared, and that we were doing our best to try to leave San Marcos a little bit better for them in the future. And that, to me, is what community involvement is all about. It's inclusiveness. It's listening to diverse perspectives. It's having a willingness to take risk. I mean, I mentioned I was the very first Latino mayor. I'd never, my family had never been involved in that level of politics in the past. I was also the youngest mayor, so lots of firsts. And with that comes lots of eyes that are watching, and you want to leave a positive impression on those individuals. And even those that may not agree with your decisions, you still want to have respectful dialogue and respectful discourse, and continue to listen to others and engage, and try to leave that as an example for those that may come after you as well. Let's look at that final picture that we have here on this slide, and what does that bring us to? So even though I have been out of office now in elected capacity for coming up on 6 years now, I left office in 2016, so I guess coming up on 5 years. I still stay involved. One of the things that I love doing is I serve as Santa Claus for the fire department. A number of different businesses and organizations ask if I'll come by in my Santa suit and greet the kids. And I've always liked this picture because you've got one little girl there that's like, yeah, let's take this picture. Let's get this over with. And you've got her sister there that's just like, oh my goodness, who is this person? Because I have now panicked. But that's what community engagement is about. It's about having a willingness to be involved, to put on that costume from time to time, and to just be a part of good things, and to share your talents, to share your time, and if you can add a smile to someone's face, to do so. If you can help someone that's in need, to do so, and to just be a part of the community in a manner that gets you invited back. And I've been fortunate over the last, probably 5, 6, 7 years to be invited back to help during the Christmas holidays and serve as a local Santa Claus. My fire chief lovingly refers to me as his brown Santa, which I greatly appreciate. Let's go to that next slide. So what am I doing now? Let's take a look at this first image here. As I mentioned, I'm a university professor. I teach at Texas State University. I teach at Concordia University. At Concordia, I teach both MBA and undergraduate classes in management and leadership, ethics, business policy, and society. At Texas State, this is actually a group of my students. I used to teach a class called Introduction to Business in a Global Environment, where we talk about what's happening worldwide, and that in understanding of the importance of being involved, being informed of what's taking place within your community, and to play an active role. One of the lessons that I share with all of my students is that a vision without action is a hallucination. That if you have a vision, it's certainly wonderful to have great ideas, to have lofty goals and lofty ideas, but if you do not put action towards that idea, towards that vision, it's just wishful thinking. And so I really did my best to share with these students, as well as others, that you've got to generate that action to move in the direction of the things that you want to see for your community. And simply being involved, being present, as Barbara Jordan says, 80% of leadership is simply being present. And I'm hoping, I know many of these students have been incredibly involved within their communities. Let's look at that next picture. So that right there is what I refer to as my sharing of talent. This is my sharing of time. I serve on a number of different boards, directors. Karina Rising is actually a nonprofit organization based out of Washington, D.C. that one of my high school classmates established many years ago. And it has a focus on working with both men and women that have been involved in human trafficking, that have been involved in sex trafficking, and working to try to, bring them to communities where they will feel safe, work with them through their trauma, finding them housing, finding them jobs, and just being a support mechanism for individuals from around the world. Some are here from domestically in the United States. Many are internationally that are looking for a fresh start to their lives and trying to do their best to seek those resources. And I serve on other boards as well. This is one of my favorites that I give of my time. Let's look at that last picture here. So we've got sharing of my talents, sharing of my time. This is sharing of my treasure. I acknowledge, it's Spider-Man week. So to whom much is given, much is expected. And I acknowledge and recognize that whether it was my time in scouting or the community that rallied around my family when I was going through cancer treatment, or the people that supported me when I was running for public office, or anywhere in between, I've been blessed. I've been fortunate to have folks that have invested in me. And so it's my responsibility as a community leader to be engaged and to give back, whether that's through my talent, through my time, or through my treasure. And so one of the most recent initiatives that I've been a part of is the creation of an endowed scholarship in the name of my mentor, Dr. Thomas Seacrest. And these funds are specific to be allocated to students that are pursuing a degree in leadership. So whether it's the Master's of Leadership and Change or the Doctorate of Leadership in Higher Education, which is what I'm pursuing currently at St. Edward's, we want to do our best to give back and to do so in a manner that not only honors those that have supported and assisted us, but also blesses those that are coming behind us. And so I really try to do my best from a community engagement standpoint to be involved, be engaged, to share of my talent, to share of my time, and certainly to share of my treasure. And I think that's a tremendous lesson and responsibility that we should all at some point in our lives try to be a part of in different realms and different levels. Not everyone is capable of doing it all at once. I've been very fortunate to be able to spread that out throughout my lifetime and hope to continue to do that. I think that's all of the photos and slides that I wanted to share here. Let's go ahead and move to the next thing here. I think this might be somebody else's slide.
Yes, thank you, Daniel. So we'll save that information for the end. I now want to introduce Monica. So as I mentioned, she is here with UFCU, and she will be sharing some of her experience in leading corporate community involvement efforts, but then also asking Daniel to provide more information on his experiences. So I'm excited to learn more for both of you.
Thank you, Gabby. Thank you, Daniel. That was wonderful. I mean, what a tremendous young life you've had so far. And I'm going to say young because you're still pretty young. You're younger than I am. But I think it's hard for me not to have my reporter's hat on. Before I became community affairs at UFCU, I started as a reporter and in communications. And a little bit about my background, that's what got me into community engagement. About 20 years ago, I realized that there weren't a lot of ways for people to enter community engagement. I think most people think, I want to volunteer. And they go to a nonprofit and they start to volunteer. They try to get signed up to volunteer, and maybe they have a good experience, maybe they don't. And for a lot of people, it kind of ends there or stalls there. And my job at the time was to be the communications director for the Austin Bar Association. And so we have a lot of young lawyers who come in and say, I want to get involved. Can you find out how you can help me do that, Monica? And I was frustrated. So I started blogging about it. I started writing about what community service was all about. This was a long time ago. Y'all remember blogs, right? This is before Facebook started, actually. So, showing my age. But as I started to blog about it, I got more people following it. And all of a sudden I became the source for nonprofit information. And towards the end of doing this blog, it became a magazine. Towards the end of that, I had a segment on Fox 7 every other Monday to come on to their morning show and talk about volunteer opportunities in the community. And I did that for about 6 years. And then I also had a column in the Austin American Statesman newspaper every Sunday for 3 years, talking about how to get involved in the community. And so I listened to Daniel's story, and I'm so excited by it because he's taken so many ways to get into community service. And I think, I'd love to chat with you more about that, Daniel. I have some questions for you. I'm going to put so now I'm in community affairs, and I'm doing this one-on-one with 800 employees at the University Federal Credit Union. And it's great. Our employees are fantastic, and they're always raising their hand to get involved. But a lot of them start with, meeting with me and asking me things like, Monica, I want to get involved, but there's so many things that I care about. Where do I start? How do I figure out what matters to me? What matters to me and where I can actually have an impact. So what would you say to people in those situations, Dan?
Oh, that's a great question. That's actually a question that you know, when you get elected into public office, you're not handed a manual of, okay, here's your instructions. These are the things you need to go and do. Uh, but I remember approaching the mayor that had come before me, and she was a wonderful mentor to me for many years. And I said, okay, here I am. What do I do now? And she said, well, you're going to have to figure that out on your own. But her advice was follow your heart, follow your passion, whatever you're most drawn to, let that serve as, you know, the thing that kind of carves your path for you and helps you leave a legacy. And for me, it was education. At the time, I was the executive director for the San Marcos Education Foundation. We were focused on recognizing students and teachers and bringing money and resources into our school districts, and really turned those experiences into what I wanted to focus on from a policy perspective. Another great, you know, example is when I was an undergraduate student at Texas State University, or Southwest Texas. I changed my major so many times, thinking that, well, I'm gonna follow the major that's going to pay me the most. And so I started out engineering, I went to computer science and all these things that nothing really resonated. And then my mentor told me, he said, you know, you need to find an experience or an opportunity that's going to, if you had to do it for nothing, if you did it for free, you would still be prepared to wake up every morning to do it. And that was pursuing a degree in communication and getting more heavily involved with the American Cancer Society and being an advocate and an ally for youth cancer initiatives. And that's why I say that photo from 1980 is so important to me, because that's where everything began. And to this day, it's still what moves me. So my response to anyone that's ever asked, well, how do I choose? How do I pick? Everyone's looking for help, support, time, talent, treasure. Go towards the thing that is drawing you and moves you, that moves your soul, moves your heart. And you won't go wrong. They'll find an opportunity at a place for you to be able to be most productive.
I love that point. You know, I feel like people feel like, oh, there's so many big issues out there that I feel like I want to make a change in. There's so many issues, and none of them are getting the resources they deserve. So anywhere you choose, you're going to have an impact. Not only that, once you get in there, you'll find your role in that.
Absolutely.
Right? So if you go in one way, but they identify that you have talent for something, they're going to push you towards that way, because we need more people in communications. We need more people to fundraise. We need more people to do events. They're going to find what your talent is and put you to work.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing is, tell me what you think about this. The other thing that I found that worked for me is when I start volunteering and trying something new, the people there, right? So if I start clicking with the people that are there, I feel like I found my tribe, right? And so that helps me figure out what my cause is too, right? I've gone to causes that I think I really care about this, and I'll go volunteer, but I don't, you know, maybe I was young and everybody was significantly older, or maybe I was single and everybody was, I don't know what it was. But you know, when you find your tribe, that can also help you identify where you can have an impact, because those are the people you're going to be excited to be around all the time.
Absolutely, without a doubt. I mean, that experience of belonging and the reflective process of understanding belonging it's so important that we actually spent an entire class session in my doctoral class discussing the importance, because right now I'm taking a class for my doctorate in socially conscious leadership, and we discussed justice, equity, diversity, inclusion. And then 2 weeks ago at least I was introduced to the term of belonging. And that belonging is all about group dynamics. It's all about finding the place in which you kind of fit, and people understand where you're going before you even know you want to go there, and they're willing to, you know, guide and connect and encourage you, be there for you in those moments of challenge and struggle where you might stumble and fall over, and like, no, get you back up and dust you back off, and get back in there. You have to have those positive people in your life to challenge you and encourage you, support you, and to love you.
You know, I got sucked in, and I'll tell you what happened to me. I had a full-time job doing something else. And then I learned about community service and I got sucked in. Luckily, I made a career out of this. And honestly, it's been nice and it's been lucrative, but I was making more money in the other role.
Oh, yeah.
It just wasn't as fulfilling for me. And so I think that's some other question I have for you is, you know, people don't choose to go into community service, even if they keep their full-time job and they volunteer on the side or they do community service on the side in the free time. What are some other rewards they might consider if they want to get deeper into community service?
Without a doubt, first and foremost, it's relationships. A lesson that I share with all of my students that was instilled in me by my mentors is that the moment that you graduate, and this is for anybody that's listening right now that's pursuing a degree, the moment you graduate and you cross that stage and you receive your diploma and you wave to your family in the stands and you step off the stage, 60 to 65% of whatever you were instructed, trained, learned just falls out of your head. Just falls out and it's gone. And you spend the rest of your life trying to shove it back in. And, you know, some of it gets back in and other stuff does as well. But the thing that stays with you in those environments, whether it's in the classroom or, you know, volunteering with a team or in service, are the people that you meet and how they help shape and encourage and guide you to being a better person and a greater leader. To this day, I still have a multitude of relationships worldwide that I can connect with at any given time. I can reach out to them on social media. I can call them on the phone and reconnect and be able to say, hey, we worked on this, or hey, when was the last time you were involved in this? Well, let's get together and let's do that again. And if they ever have a need as well, I get calls regularly from friends of mine right now that I got 3 calls this week alone from one person that's planning to run for Congress, 2 that are planning to run, no, let me think about it, 3 that are planning to run for Congress, and 1 that's planning to run for Bexar County judge. And these are folks that I grew up with. I've watched them progress. We've done hard work for, whether it's a nonprofit, Habitat for Humanity, you know, raising money, you know, reading to kids. You do that hard work, not from a strategic standpoint of one of these days, I'm going to go and do all this stuff. You do it for the purposes of being able to gain perspective and to have folks that can say, hey, you're really good at this. You should think about doing this other thing, or, you know, pursuing this other opportunity, because there's so many moments where we may not see the good or the talent that we have in ourselves at work, but it comes out in those community engagement, community involvement moments. And someone can say, oh, you're super, you know, talented when it comes to project management, time management, whatever that might be, you know, and then suddenly you start thinking, wow, that could actually turn into something. I know it has for me. I've been involved in nonprofit and government for many years, and I can show you my bank statement. It does not pay, but the relationships that I've been able to develop through those experiences have brought me into opportunities that have opened professional doors where I can continue to follow my passions and at the same time progress in my profession.
It's a harder road, but you know, I have 2 teenagers. One's about to go to college next year, and you know, you're all this pressure about what are you going to be when you grow up? What degree do you want to pursue? And I think I try to ask them to focus less on, and even after you graduate, right? You still may not know what professional path you're going to be on. And I try to get him to focus more on what do you like to do and what do you care about doing and what makes you excited. Not the job title,
right,
but what brings you joy and fulfillment. And whether that, you know, whether that is something that leads to a professional role or not, maybe you can't picture it yet. But, you know, following that interest, to me, I mean, it's helped me along the way, but I you know, like I said, it hasn't been always easy. And so I think that's a lot of things to prepare people for. The other thing I wanted to ask you, you mentioned a bunch of things here that you've done. And I think it ranges from like maybe tutor to mayor, right?
Yeah.
That they each have different impacts, but I think what's important for people to know as they pursue community service is that there's no small community service job.
Mhm.
They can all have an impact. And, you know, for you, it's maybe the tutor to mayor, Boy Scout to mayor, or professor. You know, for me, it's been like, you know, I've coached my kids' team. I've been a Brownie mom, right? A Girl Scout troop leader. I'm a deacon at my church, but I've also run a nonprofit and do community affairs for, you know, a $3 billion organization. So each of those can be fulfilling in different ways. And each of those can have an impact in different ways. You know, the times when I've had my little Girl Scout troop and we work on a project together for 3 months, and at the end, they all feel great about it and successful, and it's a performance or something. I mean, those have been some of the best moments of my life, you know,
Yeah.
seeing those girls achieve something, right? So I feel like you probably had that same experience in your
Absolutely.
small roles and your big roles, right?
You know, from someone that has been in the profession of fundraising and development and has a certificate from Austin Community College in fundraising and grant writing, you are always taught at the very beginning that it is your base. It is those base contributors that might be giving $1, $5, that is your really critical focus, because that base of those small treasures will help you build towards finding the what we used to refer to as the whale, that, you know, that person that was going to come in and drop $1 billion on you and just change your entire nonprofit organization or change your community. And those come by, but you've got to focus and build on those small moments, those critical relationships that will grow over time. And I kind of see community involvement and leadership and engagement in that same capacity, that, you know, whether you're spending an hour at the food bank, or you're giving, you know, $20 to the United Way, or you're, you know, you're tutoring, or you're helping folks with their taxes during tax season, or if we're in the holiday season, you're helping Blue Santa, you're helping Brown Santa, you're wrapping gifts, you're delivering meals to Meals on Wheels. Each of those little moments are having a significant impact on that end user, on that person that's receiving that meal, the person that's getting that ride to their doctor's appointment. While for the person that's doing the service, I might be like, oh, I've got 15 minutes, let me go and take care of this. And no, it has significant impact. And over time, it really does pay back to that person that's carrying out that role as well in their growth. I think many times we take for granted the amount of the growth that we have in our authenticity and our ability to be vulnerable and expanding our perspective of the world around us, and how we influence the world around us and how the world in return influences us. And as we gain that greater degree of consciousness and understanding of the impact that we have, whether it's that 15 minutes or that small donation, it has a significant impact on the children that are watching you do it, on the you know, just your desire to continue with that practice. So there's tremendous growth over time in any of it. I certainly would encourage everyone to just do a little something this upcoming week, our Thanksgiving week. Do a little something, and then the following week, do a little something more, and then next year, invite other people to get involved, because it's infectious, and there's a force multiplier, not only to the impact that you have on the community, but how the community impacts you in your growth as a person as well.
Yeah, I think that's what's so exciting about it. You know, in our professional lives, oftentimes the path is really clear, right? You start off as this, and then you become manager, and then you become senior manager, and then you become, and it's kind of, you can kind of predict how that's going to go. And often people have that path planned for you, right? Your mentor or your boss. But in community service, you know, what you're describing, and that's definitely been my experience, it's kind of what you make out of it.
Yes.
There's opportunities for discovery, for authenticity, for chaos, you know, for fun, for people you never would have met, just coming home and going to work and coming home and going to work. So I mean, I think it's really exciting when you can have that part of your life that's fulfilling, but also kind of playful, and there's just a lot of discovery in that. And I like to think about it that way, almost like sometimes people have to do their professional job and they have to go to work, but then so many people that I've been exposed to who are leaders, volunteer leaders, board members, or on a commission or something, this is where they have fun.
Yes.
Right? Has that been your experience too?
It has. It's definitely been my experience. And, you were describing kind of that progression of involvement in leadership. I can definitely say the walk that I've been a part of, there's probably been no strategy to any of it. It's not as if I was sitting in my 6th grade classroom thinking, one of these days I'm going to be mayor and I'm going to clean up this town. No,
Right.
That's not how it happened. I mean, it was a lot of good people in my life saying, picking me up when I was down, get back out there, do it again, and telling me, hey, you can do this. You may not see it in yourself, but we can see it in you. And what's the worst that happens? The worst that happens is you don't win an election, or the worst that happens is you've volunteered and perhaps that person wasn't grateful. That's okay. The next person's going to be. I mean, I've run into that when I volunteer with Blue Santa from time to time, but you're going to have that impact. The other thing I wanted to share is that sense of chaos that you described. I had a thought and a great story I wanted to share really quick with everyone. When I was in office, I went through 2 traumatic natural disasters. One was the floods in 2010 in San Marcos, and the other, although it wasn't as traumatic to San Marcos, it was still to Central Texas, which were the wildfires in Bastrop. And I still remember being with my firefighters, my fire marshal, my police department, my emergency management folks during all those different events, and watching them operate. And that recognition of, well, they're not really going by a checklist. I mean, it's not like they've got a little book and we got to do this first and do this second, do this third. No, it's all situational, and you're responding to what's happening in real time with the information and the personnel and the people that you have around you to try to make a difference. And what I gained from that is, I had a gentleman that approached me one day and he said, Daniel, I know you've had a hard week and all these things have happened, but this is why we elected you. We didn't elect you because we knew you could go through a checklist and take care of, items 1 through 5. We knew that when things got jumbled up and there wasn't a clear path, that you had the perspective, you had the critical thinking skills, you had the willingness to ask questions and raise your hand and ask for help to get things done when there was no plan. And what that taught me, and what I share with my students now, is when someone's hiring you, they're not hiring you because they know, oh, well, you can get items 1 through 3 done. They want to know that when no one's around and the sky is falling, that you're going to show up, that you're going to perform, that you're going to encourage others, that you're going to do so with a sense of grace and ethics and really work in the chaos to solve problems. That's what you're being hired for. That's why you're being promoted. That's why you're being paid, is to be able to change that trajectory. And the analogy that I share is that of a pilot. A pilot, when they are traveling, they do not see, and I'm kind of thinking of this from a community engagement standpoint, they don't see the people that are behind them in the plane as customers or head count. They see them as a heart count, or specifically as souls. Their responsibility is to get them from where they're departing from to their destination. And it's not a straight line. It's never a straight line. You're going to have those moments of changing your trajectory, changing your altitude, avoiding turbulence. And most times those souls that are in the back have no clue. Every now and then the plane might rock a little bit, but their responsibility is to go through those moments of uncertainty and change to get you to where you're planning to be. And I think that really speaks also to what being involved in community engagement is like. So you may arrive thinking you're going to do one thing and do 2 or 3 things that you were never assigned to do or planning to do, but there's going to be an enrichment that comes from that will be supportive of the community and to yourself.
I think that's important to remember. I didn't mean to characterize it as chaos, but it can be that.
Oh, I love it as chaos.
Well, I've worked at a nonprofit too, right? And so nonprofits are traditionally understaffed. When I was communications director, I was also supporting fundraising. I did the marketing, I did the website, I did the PR, I did everything, right? having volunteers and people to support that nonprofit is critical to the nonprofit's success. So there's the ways that you can volunteer are, be an extra set of hands, right?
Yes.
But then there's bringing your professional skills or your, maybe if you're retired, right? Bringing the skills you have as a professional to help a nonprofit. Oh my gosh, those are so welcome at nonprofits. I can't tell you how many times having someone to help with the accounting, or someone to help with the event planning, or someone to help with outreach, or someone to help with writing, or those skills, pro bono skills that people lend as volunteers are critical to a nonprofit success. And so, I invite people to think about, if you like doing what you do during the day, there's a nonprofit out there who could benefit from that if you can do that for them. That's another really important way that people can get involved in the community.
Absolutely. And the other part that you described so eloquently is, even if that organization does not exist, leaders have the capacity to create one so that it's at least offered.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important for anybody that's involved in community engagement, community involvement, is that there's always going to be a need. Mm-hmm. And the hardship is that I think we have a tendency to kind of label people as, well, that's our leader. That's the person that's going to take us for the next 50 years. And you forget that person has a life. That person has dreams and passions and responsibilities as well. And if you put everything on his or her shoulders, or their shoulders, I mean, they get worn out. And so being there from a strategic planning standpoint, from, of course, when I wanted the words, but from preparing for the future and allowing people to be able to mentor and share.
Succession planning.
Succession. There you go. Yeah. Developing that succession plan for the future is vital for whether you're talking about, elected leadership, nonprofit leadership, business leadership, church leadership. You've got to be able to start encouraging the heart for those folks that might think, oh, that's something that guy over there is doing. I'm going to continue to allow him to do it. No. It's time for you to step up too. It's time for you to be a part of it.
You're bringing up a really good point. And so we've been talking all about the positives, because, they do outweigh the negatives, but there is a risk. And the risk that I have found as a volunteer and as stepping up into community service is that burnout. And so if you start to become someone that an organization can rely on to always be there, I think I was, just as kind of an example, on the executive team of the PTA after my kids graduated from that school. Like, Monica, take a hint. They're taking advantage of you, and it's time for you to move on, right? Because you have that willingness to show up to those meetings, and you have that institutional knowledge, how we did it the years before. So you kind of also have to protect yourself when you go out to the community. No, the classic thing, especially for women, we often don't know when to say no, and that no is a complete sentence. And if you feel uncomfortable, at any time in your community service, to protect yourself a little bit. Your time is valuable to the community, but also to yourself.
I think that's the key term, and the title of this program is involvement. I mean, it's being involved, and I think that level of involvement also means understanding your boundaries and understanding your limits and being able to acknowledge those. And most importantly, as you mentioned, being able to say no and recognizing when you're overloaded is helpful for both that volunteer engagement aspect and the professional aspect. And then also just being able to know when it's time to let someone else kind of, take the lead role. I that is probably, at least from my perspective, the most important responsibility of a leader is to develop other leaders, to recognize them, to acknowledge them, to support them, to encourage them, to challenge them. And way too frequently, especially in the nonprofit world, we get overly dependent upon a person, a personality, to complete something. And you've got to recognize that we're all human. We all have our passions and goals and desires, and sometimes they may not be involved directly with that organization or that cause. And you've got to let people be able to go and spread their wings and do those things, and encourage others to step up and bring forth new energy, new ideas, new perspectives. That's healthy. It's incredibly healthy.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to end on the negative, so I want to let you have an opportunity to bring us back up to the positive and keep people excited. So just since we just have a few more minutes, Daniel, maybe you can
Sure.
in a couple of minutes. What is the key takeaway here?
I mean, I think the key takeaway when it comes to community involvement is very much in line with the images that I shared earlier. It's the recognition that we each come blessed with a sense of time, talent, and treasure. Time is something that, we can't really control. We can kind of monitor and distribute and make the most of. And I think we all kind of want to be able to utilize our time in ways that are going to be beneficial to ourselves and to others. We all have talents. In some cases that talents exceed others. I know I have a talent, a gift for gab, as my mentors always say. But I think I also have a pretty reasonable talent for storytelling. And I can take a decent picture. I understand angles, and so I do that from time to time. But others have talents in understanding finances and being able to create images that tell a story, or simply being able to say, you know what, I can lift that. I can lift that many, many times, and that's a talent. And then certainly treasure. I think when you are capable to give, whether that's giving $1, whether that's giving a bereavement of some type, those three lessons right there are things that we can do all in conjunction of one another or at different times. I know one of it's not really a talent of mine, it's more a contribution of time. I'm planning to go Christmas caroling at one of our local nursing homes, and so that's kind of my contribution. No talent,
but I'm going to.
I have no talent there, but I have time. And so that's something I'm planning to do. Next week, I'm volunteering with Operation Turkey, and I'll be distributing meals here in Hays County to folks in need. I'll serve as Santa Claus in December at the public library. Another big thing that I'm doing is I'm traveling to Sweden in December to go and meet with a university there in Sweden that's wanting to reopen their institution for study abroad experiences. And so that kind of blends both my professional and personal curiosities of global travel, global relationships, and bridging those relationships together. So we all have different capacities to do it, and we're in the season to make that happen. So I encourage all of you.
I was just going to say that. I mean, if you ever want to get involved, this is the time to do it. There's so many ways right now. We put together at UFCU this something called 12 Days of Do Good in my department. And it is 30 plus activities over 12 days for our employees to just plug in and get going, be a part of the season. Some of the opportunities you have right now aren't available at any time of the year. So I encourage anyone to go out there and just do a quick search, find something that's really easy. People always want to think, is just getting involved with the holidays, does that have an impact on the family? Giving them a gift, giving them a gift card, something like that. We all want the holidays to be special for us. And the holidays for families in need are some of the hardest times. So anything has an impact. If you don't think giving a kid a toy over the holidays is not really impactful, go back to your childhood and think about if you had a Christmas without a toy, right? You remember that Christmas for the rest of your life. So if you could be a part of changing and making it a positive for someone, that's going to be an impact for the rest of their life. So I always try to tell them, those small things have huge impact, especially on people in need. So go out there and go find something. So thank you very much, Daniel, for your inspiring words of encouragement.
Well, thank you.
I think hopefully people were leaving here a little bit excited. And so back to you, Gabby.
Thank you. And thank you both. Thank you, Daniel and Monica, for sharing your time and talents with us today. Thank you to UFCU for sharing their treasure with us and making our series possible. We definitely look forward to, taking it all in, applying the lessons, and then following up with y'all on, how we use our time and talents in the coming weeks, but also continuously, because it's not something that we can just only do for the holidays. Before we part ways, I wanted to remind you that the Alumni Association is your lifelong resource. So you can contact us at sealumni@stedwards.edu or slide into our DMs on Instagram and Facebook. If you have any questions, we are open. You can email us and contact us 24/7. We are not able to respond 24/7, but we are more than happy to get back to you when we are in the office. And as mentioned, UFCU serves as the sponsor for our Alumni Leveling Up series. Thank you again for your support. We really do appreciate it. UFCU is also happy to serve as a resource for your financial needs, so be on the lookout for ways in which you can be involved. And our next Alumni Leveling Up series is happening in the spring, since again, this is a busy holiday season, and we want you to be present with the people that you care about. Stay tuned for more details on the topic and the date, and I will see you in the spring. So have a great night, everyone.
Thanks, Gabby. Have a good night. Take care, y'all.
Thanks, y'all. See you later.
Thank you.